All right, sweet people. Call you welcome to my reproduction of my enticing talk about why conversations that you are not having are having you. This is actually a lecture I was like providing at engineering leaders conference in early April in Prague, and it was a very enticing event with a lot of like cool brands from Meta and Netflix. But much cooler is the brands were the people behind the brands, and I made the people that made this conference possible. And yeah, I feel really honored I was given the chance. And as the format I was offering was overrun or overbooked, I just decided to re-record it because the in-place recording like didn't work out perfectly. So like in this way, like you also can see the slides. From your startup, your scale up, your whatever company, your SME, your corporate department, your silo, you have a lot of conversations that are not happening. And that's a costly matter. And my mission is absolutely to enable people to make difficult conversations easier. It's not that they're entirely easy, but they can be made easier. So sometimes what's simply missing is the scaffolding, a methodology, a framework, an idea, a spark, a nudge to bring people there. And that's why I just decided to bring this beautiful presentation to you and to life again. Okay, let's start as if this would be like a little workshop. So I hope you have kind of 30 minutes of time. Probably I'm a bit faster, probably I'm a bit slower. We will see. So, what I first want to invite you to is to agree on a gesture. As I come from design thinking, we always had a gesture of agreement, of resonance in the beginning, which I just called the brain helicopter. And it was always the gesture of like doing this. I mean, you're at home right now, feel free to do it or not do it. My invitation is just like to feel, okay, there's resonance. There I really feel this guy uh, is talking about something I have experienced, something I lived through, something I absolutely suffer from as well. Second is that as we are in that thing together, to share the responsibility for the success of this lecture, workshop, meeting, your view time. So, the best you can get out of it, of course, if you dedicate yourself. Lower your phone. That's the best thing if your brain is already like that corrupted that you can't follow me without the phone. Follow me with the phone. You can even do screenshots and share it later in social media. Thank you. Next invitation is to look at like what is your metacognition. So metacognition is the skill that you can follow your own thoughts, observe yourself while you're talking, acting, and having like thought processes that are infinitely like twirling and circling around your head all day long till you take the hammer in the evening to just fall to bed or the phone. So the thing here is really like to observe. Yeah, my mentor always said like if you want to really like take great decisions, you have to observe. You don't think so much. You observe more, and that's the great thing. And especially as like many listeners here might be engineering leaders and developers, think about the dichotomy of that you code things, but you also decode things. And what I talk about today is to decode language, language patterns, communication, human situations. And sometimes when I'm in leadership trainings, I will speak about my profession soon. Then I can observe people like reacting, people from tech professions, engineering professions, very often like have them say, "Oh, now I have to become a psychologist." And so like, yo, bro, now you're leading people. You're not leading a crane anymore or a program. You're leading people. So that implies you have to refine your vocabulary, your observation, your empathy, your skills to decode emotional cues, micro gestures, just a change in tone in voice. If somebody talks a bit more silent or like anxious or is like bold, like this is all things like that probably your system is already perceiving, but you operationalize them. You really tackle them. You really make them your interior. You make them your toolbox so that you become not just a better leader, but a person to communicate profoundly aware with other people and especially with yourself. All right, let's take on the right. About me, my name is Göran Hielscher, or like Goran Hielscher. You can't see it right now. Like the video button is on my name, but you have seen it at the end or the beginning of this talk. Um, when people ask me like, "What are you doing?" I always say like, "Hey, I'm a passionate people mover," and what I'm really passionate about is that I love to connect the dots in knowledge. I read a book here, I read an article there, and suddenly my brain like brings it all together, and it's just like, oh wow, what is if we combine that? Like if people would just know that this and that, yeah. So it's a pity we do not learn like systems thinking or strategic thinking or critical thinking, high level thinking in school. We actually do not really learn to think. We just like learn to learn to stuff that sometimes like nonsensical stuff like in school like into our heads and then like just like vomit it out once there is a test. Secondly, I love to connect people with knowledge, so that means my passion is also to share the knowledge, to talk about, to pack it into a story, to make it a lecture, a workshop, a session, a keynote. This is what I really love. Yeah, to the things that I'm fascinated about. This book wall, and no, don't be over impressed. It's a library. I have not read all books. I have read a, a wide plethora of them. Sometimes when I'm doing a workshop online, I'm just like, oh yeah, you know here, oh you know there, of course. But I mean, have books, have something tangible that contains wisdom of other people that you can build your wisdom on. And third, I love to connect people with people. So, like, all the knowledge is absolutely nonsensical if you don't use it. So, if it's just like in that library, stack, shelf, whatever, and you can't get it to anyone, so that would be nonsensical. But once you can share it and see people have use of it, can make use of it without reading the entire book, that's the thing that makes me very happy. Pardon my carrot juice. So, as a result of this like three layer passion, I'm really happy to create spaces where communication is truly happening and is turned into action, because by definition, communication means to come in union. Yeah. And in union means for something, like to do something, to change something, to achieve something together. Co or com is always like this prefix that like refers to something together. So yeah, that's me. Like I'm also like a threefold guy, as you can see. Like the left guy is like my DJ brand, Goranji. So I'm a very passionate DJ, side hustle, primarily for ecstatic dance, but I also do parties and festivals. And that's for me also type of a leadership and a communication, because you can read space, you can read people, you have to arrange a room. You put your sequence with music, with your interaction, your sentence, just in another like form of energy. In the middle is the guy that you see there with the sacco or the jacket, that, yeah, like loves to do leadership trainings, facilitation. I will like give you the full list very soon. And right is also the sparkly adventurous that climbs onto mountains and goes through jungles and forests every once in a while. Not always, but whenever there is an opportunity, I love to grab it, as here on Kilimanjaro. And for the reason for you to believe me that I was in Kilimanjaro, look at this. So here we are, Mount Kilimanjaro. Is like 4 or 5 years ago in Tanzania during COVID. It was a beautiful experience, not many people there. Um, but of course, I didn't do it like entirely alone. I had a team of people. You can book that there. They make your life very easy. I mean, still it's 6,000 meters in altitude almost. So, but you're happy to have like some guys that carry up your stuff, and you arrive there and your tent is built and your food is prepared. Still 5 6 days to go to the peak. It's a thing. So, and for me, like also this kind of sports is a an expression of leadership and a good way to observe other people how they collaborate. Talking about, I originate from design, copy, editorial design thinking, studied society and business communications, SBC, was an agile transformation co-lead at an airline. And then I went into systems coaching, leadership training, and executive coaching, which I love a lot. So if you want to have a one-on-one in all matters of ameliorating your presence, your sovereignty, the sharpness of your language, also your persuasion skills ethically. Let's talk. And yeah, that means like I'm up for all leadership elevation and communication because we have some issues like in the realm of leadership. This is companies I have worked with or worked for. It's a fine difference. So, but I'm very happy to like have been in all these environments and climates and cultures and see like how people collaborate. And of course, when more people come together, you can achieve better results. But therefore, you need, of course, some wisdom that I retrieve from design thinking. Speaking of people, place, process in a well aligned manner. Here you see a workshop for the for future imagery or like future imagination for cooperative banking CEOs in Germany. This is a product company that does like retail for tailored umbrellas for top car brands, automotive. Here we have Lufthansa, where I was doing conflict handling and the annual goal consolidation, and a very light format human connection workshop on a very enticing thing called Nomad Cruise. And here you see something that I absolutely adore in my work, that you have to do the connection before you come with the content. And that's a matter that so often probably like all these meetings where people start straight away and do not connect before, do not set a climate so that people can really listen and can really receive the message. And that reminded me to a very beautiful proverb, which is probably familiar to you. If not, enjoy. Between what is said and not meant, and meant and not said, most of love is lost. And you probably can refer that to a lot of relationship situations with a little twist in the word selection. You can definitely put or pull this one into the business realm. So between what is said and not meant, and what is meant and not said, most of money is lost. So that's the problem we see so often in organizations. And most organizations I worked with sooner or later have said this sentence: we have no budget for communication training. And I was like so wondering about it, because they could also have said, but we have massive budget for communication problems. And just for the update, I think is nothing new about it. I listed just some examples of communication problems you face. I will pick some for you to remind. You can also pause and read through all of them. But we have euphemisms when people speak with each other. They get cynical, ironical, as like the last resort or last straw of sabotage. We have contrarianism. We have decision apathy. People do not know how to decide properly. We have a strategy Babylon. People use different terms. They think they are aligned, and at the end, everything like cracks and collapses. We have surprise resignations of people that are resigning because we didn't talk to them for a year properly. Feedback only once a year, which could be a reason that has led to such, yeah, like faulty decisions. Silence mistaken for agreement. No shared glossary or term clarity. Like, like domains, marketing, sales, product, IT, they all grow different domain languages and therefore like categories of thinking that are not like per se compatible. And if they're not per se compatible, it's not a surprise that they don't understand each other. And it's even not a surprise if they don't understand each other if they have very different KPIs and not aligned KPIs. If the KPIs are even set in a way that they are competitive, yeah, like antagonistic. So that makes no sense. Like, how do you want to bring peace for people that you told they are your enemies, bluntly said? Meetings with too many people but too little purpose. Toxic top performers that were protected from accountability. Interview panels misaligned on what good looks like. One-on-ones where neither a person says what's actually wrong, but like they totally like sugarcoat it. and so forth. I could go on for ages, and I think like for each you have like five other ones, like a Medusa head. So you cut one and like five like grow again, and that's really a thing that not enough companies do an audit of what their faulty or miserable communication costs them. But then they like fail in investing in communication measures that really help them. Look, just by these sources, Grammarly, sitting here in Berlin as well, 2023, average annual cost of miscommunication per knowledge worker in lost productivity, rework, missed deadlines, 7.5 hours lost per employee per week to poor communication, nearly one full working day every single week. That's 20% of loss. 70% of employees report that unclear communication from leadership is the primary source of workplace stress. And you will remember this number that oscillates around 80% from uh, as well from Gallup, I think, like about the engagement level of people in companies. And that's like why I work with people like you, to bring them to the conviction that it's absolutely worthy investing in good communication to achieve one thing at least, that your employees, that your teammates can't wait to come to work tomorrow, because you have created such a great climate of collaboration, such a low level of stress, high psychological safety, we would say it, which is also very often mistaken with the absence of conflict. But all team science like points to the fact that difficult conversations made easy is the secret sauce. So, and therefore you need a climate, a total reduced fear of consequences when you speak up for yourself. You want honest employees, but you build an environment that punishes honesty. Yeah, don't be surprised. As I was like speaking on the tech leaders conference, I tweaked a little bit the event app in the morning, and I wrote like 100 leaders to get to know what is their biggest issue in communication in their work environment and also for themselves. And I found a lot of answers. I can't zoom. I can zoom in a little bit here. Um, it's the overlooked part. Everyone in a big team is working toward a common goal. Common across many companies. I work for different functions, don't hear each other. Sales, marketing, enablement. This is like the domain thinking, domain language problem. Um, Top-down flow of information, like glass doors, glass ceilings. We organized in silos, every silo with its own KPIs, product operations, engineering, pre-sale, support. Everyone has its own set of priorities and a demand effort. So, like, if you are not like pulling the same rope, um, you can't be developing one culture stance, right? What else do we have? Nice to meet you. One big issue in communication I've seen again and again is that a small group of leaders spends quite a bit time in discussions around one topic, direct their feet with making a decision and not communicating to the rest of the company. I think this all sounds very familiar to you. Like, we don't have to like stress this too much. Fact is that like from such a little plethora of like your employees, here it was the attendees of a conference, you can get a scale of like problems. Look, I mean, we have silo effects among this little peer group here, and I did this just by phone. It's not like super refined. 18% of cross-functional misalignment as an issue. The personal arena, situational individual issues, 14%. Listening gap, active listening, definitely here 4%. I bet is much higher. Maybe they don't perceive it so much for several reasons. Feedback freeze and feedback and conflict avoidance, 22%, assumption trap, implicit communication, bad translation between departments or cultures, 21%, leadership echo chamber, top down opacity, another 18%. So this is just like a very quick and dirty research I did at the conference in the morning. Imagine you do this in your company. So from this little thing, just as an example, we could already extract. I used AI for that. It's of course like a matter of then like when you go really like personal in a company of like a data protection issue to find out what you want to find out, but with people agreeing, of course, in it. So engineering leaders here in this cohort, which is anonymous, were overwhelmingly describing communication problem as a structural and interpersonal, not a skill-based issue. They don't say I can't present. They say we don't align. We don't surface truth. We assume. The feedback freeze and assumption trap together has 43% of responses. So there's a very high thing. Feedback freeze can come from a bad culture, from a culture that doesn't really allow psychological safety, where dispute and debate can flourish. What was very absent was like self-esteem and own skill framing. There was almost zero. So there was a tendency I could even see, like in the first messages I received, that engineering leaders externalize can be dependent a bit to my way of asking. Of course, for a real survey, we have to refine. I just want to show you what can come up, because then you can bring in measures. And you don't book a communication training from the shelf. You do an audit and you refine what you want to get to know upfront. And that's like so insightful and so interesting. And this is like results and sentences here, all that you have. You can put on the table in a meeting, in a cultural offsite, in a strategic offsite, to really get to know like what to work on. And regarding your type of company and where you're at in your company maturation process, each of these issues has a different price tag, right? So the irony, especially for engineering leaders, is that you can also engineer human communication, but you have to consider it as something manageable, not just something that is out of your scope, out of your skill set, out of your psychological comfort zone. It's really something you have to access with play and from a place of, I repeat it probably 10 more times, psychological safety, as so often said. So, communication statistics. I just did a quick research to bring these numbers in. Team communication: 86% of people blame workspace failures on poor communication, uh, on poor collaboration and communication. The product impact, productivity gain in well-connected teams is 20 to 25%. Hybrid work. The remote work harms a lot of cross-team communication. I have a lot of teams where they say, yeah, our meetings are so mediocre. Oh, have you your camera switched on? No, not that much. Do you have an agenda? Not really. Do you finish with agreements and with tasks and responsibilities? Sometimes. Guys, time to change that. Then, cost of poor communication, as said, like 62 million per year in companies of like 100,000 employees. That's insane. And you don't even talk about it sometimes, right? So we go further. Take a deep breath. That's what I invite people to, having this micro breaks, because, of course, I talk a lot, I talk fast, and I talk about a lot of things, and your brain has to digest. And therefore, like a little break sometimes is good. So at the end of the talk, and that fits so well to anticipate, in Prague at the conference, I was asked, like, what is the most important leadership advice that you have? And my answer is here: lit a bonfire. Literally, sit outside, get outside somewhere, get to know each other, enjoy the format of the circle. We have done that for thousands of years. As people, everyone becomes a leader. We have eyesight, everybody's open with the front, everybody has the same value in that circle. We have warmth from the center, we have protection towards the outside, and we are all together. And the energy can circle. And that's a very important thing. I will not go much deeper in that, but storytelling, science combined with neuroscience, combined with team science, is a very interesting matter. I told you, like, to combine, I love to combine the knowledge spheres. And here's a lot of insights that point to that circle work. As much as you complain about this looks like anonymous alcoholics, look, most of you are anonymous workaholics. And the circle is a good way to start to feel differently in a communication situation, because set and setting determines a lot. We will speak later about priming and framing and setting, which are all dimensions of a conversation that we have to take attention to. This number, rough number, not super refined, but quite true. 50% of managers globally have never received the formal leadership training. Leadership is a profession per se. It's not just a result of you tweaked your technical career or your marketing career or your masters of business career. Leadership is a skill, and not everybody is made for the skill, but you can learn a lot of the feats and tricks that are needed to become a good leader. And becoming a good leader initially means becoming very good with yourself. That's why I would say even it would surprise you that many freelancers, as they have to deal this shit with their shadows so much, are actually good leaders. Because as you know, most leadership trainings start with leading yourself. And what do you have to do as a freelancer? You have to lead yourself, because otherwise you just like jump from the brink. Then you lead others, and then you lead business. And this all like integrated, interwoven in a very refined rigor or manner, becomes a leadership approach that is not taught in every company. And you know, these guys where you feel like not the right trajectory for you, bro. But be it. Let's go further. What I also observe is that most trainings are built for scalability, and that's important. Of course, you want to like have money-saving measures, but they are not built for adaptability. But we are living in times of VUCA, of Bani, or the newest latest thing is PUMO. You can look it up for yourself. It's this triplet of VUCA, Bani, PUMO. Volatile times, like very fragile times, where changes around the corner each moment. So my claim is really like you need to have 10 to 20% in your trainings for adaptability, for playful, explorative ways to see how the knowledge that you receive in the training, the other 80%, can be integrated even times change. Because if you build a big training um, for let's say the next 3 years, in times when I don't know, like your AI stack is just like actualized every 90 days, like something is wrong. Even the foundations are super crucial, but with the changes that happen so fast nowadays, it's very important to get into it. So that's why I feel it's so important to like share also this little formula of no reflection, no direction, or simply positively speaking, reflection and direction. And this is so important because so many leaders I'm working with, they share one thing, like when we start with leading yourself, which is, oh wow, that's the first time I have time to think about myself. And I'm just like, I wish I would have no time to think about myself. I would love to have more time to think about something else. I'm a freelancer since 22 years, and I thought a lot about myself and the different roles I did, the adventures I had, the people I met, the contexts I adapted to. And this has just happened in a different extent when you're like spending a long time in the same company or in the same position or in the same team. All right, this is just like a little exercise. You don't necessarily have to do it now, but please start thinking about it. Or if you rewind, do it, because this was very crucial in the live lecture. And I asked people to write down one conversation that you already should have had this year, but you skipped it, postponed it, or silenced it so far. One conversation, think about it in your business environment, business realm, not privately. You can think about that as well, but our task here is about business. The next step would be to have an exchange with a buddy or a friend or a colleague and tell them really in a trustful atmosphere, why did you avoid it? Why did you skip? Why did you not went into it? And the buddy can ask and dig deeper. Why? He can even ask 5 times why, as we asked in design thinking, to explore root causes. And then if you want, of course, you share publicly. No, you don't share here. We shared it in a room, and this was like a live lecture with some dozen people. And you allow me a sip of my carrot juice. Yummy. Okay, we continue. Take a deep breath. Shake all that stuff off, make your brain open, and let's reflect on leadership again. So I think you would agree leadership is relationship management, a proper profession, as I said. So, what do you think is the operating system of a relationship manager or of relationship management per se? Yeah, communication and language. Totally agreed. But there's a problem with communication. And what is the problem with communication? As George Bernard Shaw said, and that's like one of my most favorite quotes on communication, is that the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Let that sink in. The illusion that it has taken place. So each person is a black box. When I ask you to think about a dog, you might have thought about a Yorkshire, a Bernardiner, a Tackle, a Bloodhound, a Doberman, a Rhodesian Ridgeback, whatsoever, a poodle. And if you don't clarify on terms, you always like run in a direction with blindfolded eyes. So and that's why it's so important to get clear on terms, to paraphrase, to ask again, to not interpret, to just simply have deeper conversations about what we are talking about. So let's think about what does communication affect the most? Exactly, culture. And what does culture eat for breakfast? Exactly, strategy. And I found this very interesting quote by BMW manager Oliver Zipse. I have learned that two things are central to running a business. You must have absolute anonymity on decisions that are important in the long term and from a strategic perspective. As a board member, you must not make top down decisions and impose them on the entire organization. At the same time, you must almost foster a culture of dissent when it comes to short term performances and operational matters. The duality is crucial. What we often see among our competitors is the opposite model, and it might remind you about your company. The top down strategy, because something seems opportune at the moment, yet too much consensus when it comes to assess day to day business. Which means if you do not foster dissent, if you do not foster dispute, if you do not foster a little battle, not about right or wrong, not about who is right or wrong, but more what is right or wrong in terms of the business objective. And this is too often forgotten, especially like between silos or teams or departments, when they are not finding a clear way to remember what is the objective of this business, of this company. And that makes the decision easier. So it's very good to clear the space, yeah, with some tension, with maybe the voice is getting a little bit louder. We can allow that. We are grown-ups. We have to take tensions and manage them. Um, but therefore finding ways to agree in long term on the strategy. And a strong invitation to do this is to not be so fucking serious, to be more playful, to allow provocation here, exaggeration, because exaggeration helps you finding the truth. Cynicism, irony is a reference of dissatisfaction in the background. Someone answers you cynical, that may refer to a point where he feels helpless, that drives him to a stance that makes the person cynical. No one is just cynical because they're so bad. Something feels very disengaged, disappointed, demotivated in the person. There's an exposure of helplessness in mean terms. So, for your homework, just estimate what is at stake when the difficult conversation is not happening humanely, collaboratively, financially. Estimate what is at stake when the conversation is not is not happening. Give it a price tag. Just estimate roughly. It doesn't have to be like super right, but think about the delay of a project. Think about the stonewalling and the keeping back of information that would be crucial. Someone else gets it but doesn't get it because of some power plays. Think about someone hiding a mistake and how this snowballs and the mistake is repeated by an entire team or department. Think about it. Then have an exchange with your buddy, with your imaginary buddy. So where you like exchange these numbers, and like what you really think is between you and the stake or the risk of loss. What is in between there? What is the threshold you have to pass? What is the resource that you need to tap into to make it possible, to dare, to be courageous, to nudge yourself or nudge your team into this difficult conversation? I hope you see why leaders urgently need to learn more about our inbuilt operating system, about language and communication. And language and communication is at risk at the moment with the increasing use of AI, which is amazing when you tweak it in a way that it makes you smarter and not more dull, that it doesn't threaten you to be exposed to cognitive decline. Um, so I can just highly recommend to write more, read novels. I could go so deep in that, so that you, especially like when you are a leader, a tech leader, a human leader, a learning leader, a CTO, CFO, CEO, CIO, whatever O and C, that you are aware how language is altered slowly in your company, in the way people speak, in the way how what patterns emerge, in the way AI brings people out of the skill of having a humanly conversation. I want to give you this overview, just like some thought. So we have this leadership paradox in the era of AI. Yeah, the more the AI thinks, the more human leadership must become. But we are not yet there to have that fulfilled, because AI absorbs cognitive routines and makes the muscles that are important muscles for critical decision making atrophic. Yeah. So the critical thinking declines. We have no reference points in neuroscience. We say what fires that wires, but if there's no firing anymore, like on the way between input and output, so like what should wire in the brain? So like you really deteriorate the capacities, the cognitive the capacities of your people, if you probably just stupidly put, I heard it lately from a company, that people have to burn down like 1 million tokens in from their AI stake, or like 500,000, I don't know how much, but that was their KPI. Not how smart we deal with AI. You have to burn tokens, otherwise you get punished. What the fuck is going on? Language is the operating system, the medium of our thought, of nuance, of judgment, of conflict, of navigation, of our thinking. Yeah, this was makes made us human, and like that sharpened and determined our culture. And that should not be reduced at all by just like some people, from the uh, Silicon Cartelli, that like lured us into, yeah, the siren songs of all these like tech measures. At the core, we are humans, and we have to delegate the tech, and not the tech has to delegate us. And this leads to an imperative for me that says like we have meaning making over like information delivery, that we have like actively to build psychological safety and like brain capacity, and we have to coach in presence, in hybrid settings as well. But I can just like from all the experience in leadership coaching and training, I say like do as much presence as it's possible and it's economically feasible. We have no perfect measures to say uh, that the ROI of like short-term cost savings are long-term ROI, like in how to keep the knowledge and how to keep belonging and engagement in a company. I think these numbers are missing still at this moment. So, what else? I think one approach to tackle that is to really bring in a very capable person that becomes your CRO, which what I mean by that is not the chief revenue officer, is the chief relationship officer. For me, is like the head of all leadership stuff in the company, just for the measures of everything leadership related, as you can see. So maybe it's even like many relationship officers. And why do I like vow for that? Why do I call for relationship officers? Is because of that. What the relationship between people can be seen as well. Exactly, as a culture. This was what is emerging, like the way we are talking, how we exchange values, how we exchange wisdom, experience, stories. And what does culture eat for breakfast? Exactly, strategy. And why this is so important was already pointed out by Sandy Pentland in 2012, who did a big study about communication patterns in companies, which became a stronger predicator of team success, much more than education and experience and skills. So, a little screenshot of his article. He speaks about this 3E formula, which means like how much energy a single person brings in of themselves into a team. Then, how is the engagement among team members? How much like each team member contributes into the team? And they drew here like thickness, different thickness into like lines of engagement from one person into the team, among team members, who talks to whom, who is left out. They could really track that with a little item called the sociometer. And then they could even see which team explored in what extent to other teams. So on all these like three dimensions have to be kept in balance to really steer team success. And this led to uh, one example, just a simple example of many, where they prove that the change just of the structure, not even of the skills of people, led to big success in how they were steering their revenue. So they had like two call center teams. One was like mediocrely performing or even subpar. People were not speaking much with each other. They like looked down at their screen. They had no spare time activities. Where the other team was more vivid, was more engaged psychologically, maybe more safe, and therefore had a higher exchange of knowledge and more fun at work and more ease and felt more safety. And they had a much higher turnaround. So what they did is they brought the people of the two teams together, shared lunch breaks, more places to really have an encounter, to just by the structure in the company to steer exchanges. And what happened over time uh, is that after a year, the revenue of the productivity was at 25% higher, 25% more sales after a year, just due to these measures. No extra training, just a change in structure. So imagine you combine structural analysis and audit, like how the communication flow and pattern is, plus training, plus awareness, plus countermeasures against AI slop and cognitive decline induced by AI, plus all the challenges that come upon us due to Bani, VUCA, and Pumo. So, with all this said, and that's just like a teaser, I have much more to share with you. If you're interested, let me know. I'm happy to come to your company or share online a very tailored keynote on how you can save money with communication measures by simply tweaking the structure, having formulas. How do you bring in psychological safety? How to increase the vocabulary and the verbal the verbal artist the artistry of leadership stuff, and of course like ways of observing better and articulating better and be more sovereign as leaders, because many leaders today are also like wobbly and do not like give really clear orders. So, and I think like this needs to be sorted out, and as well like for employees to deal with clear orders, because clarity is love. I heard lately and I really loved it. Clarity is love. So I'll close this talk. We are getting close to the 45 minutes max that I promise. Think about what will you change just from what I shared with you, and I can share much more. Reflect, because reflection gives direction. What is one diamond that you take from this talk, and what is one commitment that you can dedicate yourself to? And if you want to look behind the scenes a little bit and want to know what I use today here, more in the workshop scenario, but of course a little bit as well in my keynote, of course it was my experience and anticipation of what I know due to my experience. I use some workshop tools that I brought here. Experience design is always like taking place in the life settings, framing, reframing principles, ethical persuasion, facilitative leadership, because the leader of the future is going to be a facilitator and not an order giver. And of course, humor, love, and play. And if you want to reach out to me, feel free to visit the relevant or check the QR to reach me in my LinkedIn, and I'm very happy to receive a suggestion to have a conversation with each other. Bye bye. Enjoy.